Welcome to GeoBase channel. I have with me Mr. Gibson from Trimble and Mr. Mladen Stojic from Hexagon GeoSpatial. We are going to talk today about smart cities and the role of geospatial in smart cities. So Mladen, how do you see the role of geospatial in smart cities?
Well, geospatial provides certainly a platform upon which solutions can be built and ultimately delivered to support a whole host of smart city initiatives ranging from smart safety to smart infrastructure to smart planning and so forth. So geospatial provides the underlying foundation and ultimately the fabric upon which solutions can be built. And here certainly we're talking about the idea of what is smart, the idea of connecting sensors with software and sort of streamlining those together with enterprise workflows around a given solution. So really geospatial provides the core ingredients needed to help facilitate and ultimately deploy smart city solutions.
Chris, what is your view?
Yeah, so mine's similar to Mladen. I think that geospatial really is at the heart of the smart city ecosystem, that no matter what application you're building around it or what initiative you want out of a smart city, it can be into transportation, healthcare, education, back into the planning, the land management. Geospatial is at the core of providing that capability. And I think as time evolves, it's taking geospatial from just the coordinate system into how does that embed itself again in the workflow, and how is that information used to help the city make better decisions.
So would you say that the geospatial would really form the heart of a smart city?
I think it's at the heart of the ecosystem of a smart city. You've got a number of stakeholders in a smart city. It could be the government, it could be business, it's obviously the citizen. And the concept of the smart city ultimately is maybe to improve the quality of life of the citizen. But a lot of the information that the citizen or the other stakeholders will be using has a significant geospatial content. So I think the geospatial is at that heart of that ecosystem for the smart city.
If we look at smart city, we anticipate that would be a city which is growing, which is having more activities. So how does geospatial take care of this kind of expansion, both in terms of spatial expansion as well as in terms of vertical expansion in terms of activity?
Right, so I mean at Hexagon we believe, our motto is helping shape smart change, and that certainly is very applicable to cities who, as we see everywhere around the world, including in India, a demographic shift from rural areas to urban centers, and as a result these cities are now starting to grow. And from a policy perspective, you certainly want to have policies in place that can influence and positively impact and also manage that sustainable growth. And at the heart of that is geospatial technology. But to your earlier question, location is really the heart of what we're talking about. Everything on the Earth's surface has a location, and to that location we could assign and associate multidimensional attribute information that helps drive better decisions and smarter decisions. So from a policy perspective, we believe that geospatial technologies provide the necessary framework for collecting the data and transforming observations in these collections to help facilitate software-based solutions around smart city infrastructure and so forth. So for us, shaping smart change is really helping influence policy and helping influence decision making by providing the right type of answers that are needed to help this whole smart city movement that we see not just in India but really globally.
Smart cities, you have a lot of stress on the infrastructure, and that kind of development of infrastructure, particularly in Indian smart cities, is going to take a lot of monitoring. So how can geospatial play a role in that?
Well, I think when you look at, if you take the design, build, operate and maintain life cycle of any infrastructure asset, whilst there's 30 to 40% of the cost is in the upfront construction phase, 60 to 70% is the operate and maintain. Now I think the geospatial context can be used from the design perspective, whether it's from an architect if they're building an airport or a station, or on the civil engineering side, through the construction process, and we see that the utilization of geospatial capabilities into the construction process will reduce the cost of the project by 20 to 30%. It reduces the rework, so it makes it more effective. So a city can do more with less over over a period of time. And then you continue to use that geospatial information as you get into the operate and maintain. You have that 3D as-built model of the infrastructure asset, and then you utilize that model for the maintenance phase. So I see over the life cycle of 30, 40, 50 years, you can drive significant efficiencies in the life cycle of the asset through utilization of geospatial information.
So therefore you see an integration of geospatial and BIM?
Yes, I see geospatial BIM into that operate and maintain as just being a seamless workflow at the end of the day. It is ultimately about the workflow, and geospatial is a component of the workflow.
Then if we are talking of workflows, then do you think something like ERP is also required, Mladen?
Absolutely. I mean, I think all these business systems, not just an ERP, but the whole idea of a smart cities to connect these, what has once been, or what we've seen in the past, these departmental silos or these silos of databases and these silos of business systems, and connecting them with some interoperability platform that allows us, and once again, I think the lowest common denominator in all this is location, right? So anything on the Earth's surface within a city has a location associated with not just 3D, but then you can start hanging over time, the time dimension, but then other non-spatial attribution with location and with time. And that non-attribute or that attribute information is typically located in an ERP or some other business system, whether it's for tax records, public record. I mean, there's a whole host of information that has location in it, and we have to basically tie these systems together in order to help drive and facilitate smart city applications. So it's not just about GIS or BIM or some of the traditional sort of genres that we've all come to know and love, but it's really tying information and IT together, and just GIS and BIM just happen to be one of those information technologies.
Would you say GIS is just one of those, or do you think it's core because it has location?
I don't think it's core.
It's not core.
I think we've put GIS. We use the word very freely, openly, and GIS is a business system. It is a system within a smart city. It's not the core system. You can argue, if this was a CAD conference, CAD is the core, or BIM is the core. Everyone has a preference on what they think is the core. I don't think either of those is the core. I think the core is the information that could be tied to location. It may be in a CAD system, it may be a series of design files, it could be in a GIS system, in a relational database, it could be in just an Oracle system that has spatial records. I mean, so I don't think we could limit ourselves to just saying the GIS is the core. I think location information is the core, and that location information resides in multiple databases. I think what makes it smart is when we start connecting these databases together and start building solutions against these databases. And what gets really interesting is when you start then connecting dynamic sensor feeds for monitoring infrastructure, dynamic sensor feeds for traffic, security video cameras, sensor feeds below asphalt, below sidewalks. We've seen some of these in Christchurch and New Zealand and other places around the world where you're really starting to see dynamic sensors integrated into the infrastructure of a city and tying those dynamic sensor feeds into other databases and really having a holistic operating system for a city, and that's what makes it smart.
You mentioned about sensors, and we are talking of cities, and cities are populated with citizens. Now, citizens can also act as sensors. So how do we integrate this? Because on the one side you have very structured things like municipalities and so forth. On the other side you have this relatively unstructured, amorphous group which is called the citizen. How do we bring these two together?
I think citizen engagement is really taking off. I mean, crowdsourcing and citizen engagement. I mean, we've seen the city of New York take very, very aggressive and very positive steps towards engaging the tax-paying public and the citizens of the city to participate in collecting data and uploading information, whether it's everything from graffiti to issues with signage being spray painted or potholes, road infrastructure reflecting poor quality of roads. So citizen engagement is very critical because those are human sensors who have the ability to see and then translate what they see into information they can make available to city officials. And I think we as human beings are sensors. We have eyes, we have ears, we touch. I mean, we are sensors. We perceive the world around us. And I think we're now part of that ecosystem. We're dynamic sensors.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the engagement with the citizen is critical. And the success of the city is going to be that, down to the engagement of the citizen and that two-way feed of information. I think you look at numerous examples around the world now where cities have are utilizing their citizens as sensors to crowdsource information, whether it's for road conditions, street lighting, crowd control. I think the other area where it can come in is even in disaster management situations. You can crowdsource the information in those situations as well. So I think it's getting that engagement with the citizen and the level of trust, building the trust with the citizen, and the citizen seeing some benefit from the fact that they're providing that information. So if you've got a big pothole in your road, you take a picture, it's geo-reference, you upload it, and within X number of hours, there's a maintenance team comes to repair that, then the trust is there, and you start to build that relationship between the city and the citizen. And to me, that's critical for the success of a smart city in the future.
In one of your statements, you said that everything's got to get embedded. Do you see in this situation that these kind of separate terms like GIS, CAD, BIM, and all are in a sense going to get submerged into these activities in general?
I think we get too worried about whether it's GIS or GIS. I think it's what problem you're trying to solve, what outcome you're trying to drive, and how do you make that happen. And I think one of the keys to success for the smart cities is going to be that collaboration across departments, across databases, so that today it is siloed, as Mladen said. How do you open that data so everybody's accessing the same database with the same level of information and attributes in there? They may need a portion of that information to drive the outcome they're trying to, but it's having that open collaboration, and which will enable the benefits to the citizens and the overall running of the city. So I think it's more about, it is that integrated workflow that makes a success, and the role of systems integrators will be to make that happen, to move that data from one area to the other to drive the outcome that we're trying to drive, or the city wants to drive at the end of the day.
So how do you see this efforts like spatial data infrastructures merging into these kind of activities? Do they help?
I think I've always associated, and maybe wrongly so, I'll admit it, I've always associated SDIs as being more of a national level sort of movement where the federal government or federal agencies have mandates and the corresponding policies that help facilitate the bidirectional sharing of content and services across agencies. I haven't necessarily associated SDIs with cities. I think there's a finer granularity of content and information services at a city, whereas at the federal level, SDIs, even the scale of mapping and the scale of layers that are provided at an SDI may not be sufficient for the quality and the level of granularity that cities need. I mean, the scale of mapping you need at a city is much different to what you have at a federal level. You need engineering grade survey data. I mean, it's much different. So I think there's a relationship there, but I don't think an SDI is the core, or at least the seed upon which a smart city is built. I just think we're talking about different layers of data, of information, and so I just think they're two different things,
In closing, I mean, what are your last thoughts about this effort that we are making in India to develop smart cities? Do you think we are in the right direction, or do you think that there needs to be some changes?
Yeah. Well, I think there's great vision from the leadership of India that they want to drive the smart cities. If you look at over the next 14 years, the urban population in India is due to grow by greater than 200 million people. So things need to move forward to enable the citizens to have improve the quality of life of the citizens. But I think for smart cities to be successful here, we've got the vision. It's down to the leadership at the city level, it's down to the governance at the city level, and it's down to the execution. And I think the key on the execution side is taking those small steps along the path to the goal everybody's trying to achieve. And by doing that, citizens will start to see the benefits, and then it will start to grow itself. So I think those to me are the four key elements: of vision, leadership, governance, and execution.
How about the citizens themselves?
I think you get the engagement from the citizens, and you got to demonstrate the benefits. If there's no benefits, why would the citizen participate?
Mladen, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think India has taken a leadership role in not only the definition or the concept of a smart city, but also now starting to move towards the implementation of that. I think it comes down to knowing what the scope is and being able to deliver. I think it would be a failure if nothing were to happen from the great steps that have already been taken. I think ideas are easy, right? I think the implementation and the operational execution is what's challenging, and I think that's now to be seen and determined. But I think India has all the necessary resources to succeed, and with industry partners such as Hexagon and Trimble and others, we're here to support and that's why we're here at this conference, to support smart city initiatives, because we believe that's the future, and India has certainly taken a step forward in starting to lead the way in implementing them. So I think all the ingredients are there for success.
Thank you. On that upbeat note, I'd like to end this conversation. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mladen.
Thank you very much.